You are going to repeat your past unless you, with intention, start to choose some new emotional states that you want to experience in the future. So I don't know about you, but I think that most humans are asking the question, is there more? And have you ever found yourself asking, like, is this it? And especially if you've had some success in the business world and you've achieved a lot of your goals, the tendency is to go like, okay, am I happy? I've made a whole bunch of money, I built up another business, I've had some success here, or I got my college education and I got my job. And what else is there? And so I think that question, that curiosity question of is there more, or if you've turned that question down, I'm going to invite you to turn it up again and ask, what is this thing called life about? And I think that there has to be more. There has to be more than just making a living, paying the bills, and living in this physical world. What about the spiritual world? What about the world of thought? What about some of the things that Einstein talked about, is in the quantum field? Is there a world out there? And so I started to do some investigation and slow down my mind and look at some of the things that were possible. And here's a concept that I found fascinating. And Tony Robbins says it like this, but there's a few different versions of it. So the first thing is that your past will equal your future, right? If you keep on living there. But if you change what your goals are and the things that you want to do in the future, then it will not equal the past. But check this out. So if you're going to do something in the future, you're going to look for something in the past to find out whether you're going to have success or not. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you get up in the morning and you want to tie your shoes. Your brain is going to quickly scan some files and go, have we done that before? Pulls up tens of thousands of times that you've done it and plants the emotional thought of confidence. You reach down, you have the unconscious competence to do it, you tie your shoe, and off you go. So how many things in your day are you doing that way? The way that you make the coffee, you pour it, the same amount of cream you put in it, the way that you carry your briefcase, get to the car, turn on the computer. You have a series of things that you're doing that you've really, with unconscious behavior, looked into your past files and then drawn on them to behave in the future. Are you with me? Yes? Now, what if there's something unknown? Let's say that you go to England and you're going to drive a car on the other side, right? You've got to sit on the other side. Your brain is now going to go, hey, whoa, hold on a second. We don't have any files of references on this. How do we do this? And what does it draw up as an emotion? A lack of confidence, a lack of certainty, and also probably some stress and doubt. Are you still with me? Yes? Right. So how do you confidently go into a new future when your brain is campaigning and trying to sponsor you into repeating the past? That's what it's trying to do because it wants you to be safe. So it goes, well, we've never driven on the left side of the road. I don't think you should do that. Can you have somebody else drive? And you're like, oh, would somebody else drive? And they go, yeah, somebody else will drive. And you don't get a new experience. So how do you live an exciting, epic, adventurous, fulfilling life if your brain is campaigning all the time for you to repeat the past? In other words, your past becomes your future. It becomes a predictable future. So when I came across this concept, I started to think, holy schmoly, how many people are actually living their life that way and they don't want things that are new? They are getting older quicker because their brain has now got this stockpile of files and they keep on replacing them in the future. Does that make sense? So if you're not actively looking to do things that are newer, you're going to just be the same version of yourself. This is why they have seniors doing things like crossword puzzles and doing number games, because they say that if you don't do that, you develop Alzheimer's and things like that, because the brain is just the old brain, reshuffling the files around and replaying the same programming. So my invitation to you is this, is how passionately curious can you be about being comfortable with being uncomfortable? And if you're not willing to do that, then you're actually going to learn. It was a movie that came out in 2003 or 2004 called What the Bleep. And it actually demonstrated that the cells in your body get used to certain emotional states. And there's a chemical reaction that happens in the cell when you have an emotional state. And in the book Power versus Force, they talk about the lowest emotional states are things like shame and worry and guilt and doubt. And then it kind of moves up the chart until you get more like pride and courage and then all the way up to love and peace and harmony. So imagine that you have a place that you are most of the time. So I want you to think about what are the emotional states that you live in a lot. Maybe it's, for me, I realized that I lived a lot in this preparation and planning and thinking, right? Which was a code word really for worry, right? It was really like, I'm really worrying about things, trying to control the future. How much of us are trying to control the future, the outside circumstances? You know, if there's no traffic, it's great. And if there's no competition, it's awesome. And if I can watch my favorite show and then feel good enough to sleep well, then I'll be happy. So what are the emotional states for you? What's your emotional home becomes your personality. And I like this phrase, is that your personality creates your personal reality. And it's like the identity that you've taken on is composed of a bunch of emotional states that you live in, right? Some people that get angry all the time, guess what? They get angry all the time. Some people that are sad all the time, whenever they see something that happens, they look for a reason to get sad. The little old lady walking across the street with a couple of bags she's carrying on her own, they go, oh my God, I feel so bad for her. They do sad. They're used to doing sad, and the cells of their body are chemically addicted to seeking out the next hit for sadness. Does that make sense? So you are going to repeat your past unless you, with intention, start to choose some new emotional states that you want to experience in the future. So here's my invitation and suggestion to you, is that you start setting your goals not with outcomes, but with emotional states. So what would that look like? It'd be like, you know what? I'm going to practice being grateful at least 5 minutes every 4 hours a day. You set a little alarm on your clock, and then you practice the emotion of gratitude. Or maybe you decide that you're going to laugh 3 times a day, and you set an alarm for 1 minute. You're just going to sit there. Come on, join me. Like you can really whip yourself into a state of laughter. I can feel my body's changed. I've heated up a little bit. My heart's firing up a little bit more. I can feel some endorphins or something moving around in my body. I feel a little bit lighter. I feel good, right? Imagine if I did that for a minute or two every hour. I would actually change the chemistry in my body, and I would start to move up the ranking of emotional states. And then I'm like an antenna or a magnet. I will start to attract things to me. Does that make sense? Have you ever been with somebody that's laughing and you didn't actually find it that funny, but they laugh so much that you're sitting there and you start and you forgot what you're laughing for, right? So you can move yourself into higher vibrations of emotional energy. And then when you do that, guess what? Guess what? Do you know? Do you know what the beautiful thing is? Is you start to emit that signal out. And the way that the universe works, if you believe in this, is it wants to match that signal. You see, misery loves company. We've heard that. It's actually not totally true. Misery loves miserable company. Have you ever tried to tell your problems to somebody who's really super positive and they just won't have it, right? Oh man, you wouldn't leave. You're like, well, dude, why don't you just be grateful? So this guy stole your parking spot. Who cares? You're driving a nice car and you walk a little bit, right? And they're just like keep on reframing you. And then what happens is you go off to somebody else who likes to talk about problems. Oh, it wouldn't be. You should hear what happened to me, man. Right? So my invitation, my challenge to you is a couple of things. Number one, is to increase the amount of passionate curiosity you can provoke and sponsor into your future, right? Be conscious about being curious, about new things and trying things different ways. Maybe don't have the same regular meal all the time. Maybe drive a different way to work. Maybe, talk to a strange person. Tell them they got a beautiful smile. Live a little bit more in the unknown so that you can create some new files in the filing system of your brain so that the past now becomes more vast, so your future can become more vast. Does that make sense? Right? Cool. Number 2 is, as you do that, understand that we have this emotional range of emotions. And so maybe, like me, you spend some time in shame and guilt and worry and doubt and fear. What if you were to consciously upgrade those? And instead of feeling fearful, you start to feel excited. Instead of feeling doubtful, you became curious. Instead of feeling down, sad, or depressed, you started to laugh a minute, an hour for the fun of it. For no reason at all. Just look in the mirror and have a go at it. Yes? And when you start to change your emotional vibration, you're going to attract better things to you. And I think you'll actually live a more fulfilled life. There's nothing worse than achieving all your goals and not being happy. There's no fun in making a ton of money or being successful in a bunch of things and having nobody to celebrate it with because you're a cranky old man or, not a happy person. So this conversation I'm having with you, that I'm having with myself, I'm really having it with you, hopefully, is about you upgrading your emotional vibration, what do they call it? Your emotional IQ, and an invitation for you to not have your past be your predictable future, but your past create an unknown future of excitement and possibility. And that's really it. And check out maybe some people that are really strong in that area, like Joe Dispenza's got some great stuff. I think he's got a book called You Are the Placebo. I would highly recommend that. And a great book by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment. It's about letting go and not trying to control your future. We tend to want to do that as humans, right? That part of our brain that wants to protect us. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope that it gives you something new to think about. I'm excited about moving through to a little bit more of the spiritual growth in my life. So I'm kind of trying to drag you along with me. So hopefully you're up for it. And we'll see you in the next video.